I'm really not surprised by this passage. LSAC often likes to balance things. So they tend away from the extremes. So if somebody is ever being criticized, they're going to balance that in some way. Like saying the person's not all bad. Or if they say somebody's generally pretty good, they might point out some flaws about that person. So everything is like qualified approval or qualified disapproval. It's never black and white. It's all about shades of gray. And that's because legal matters are also about shades of gray. You see this in the writing sample where you have two options to choose between that are equally weighted. If you say, but you have to pick one, but if you say option A is the best by far and anybody who chooses option B is an idiot, you're missing something because in reality, there's pros and cons on each side. So in this case, with Marsalis was at the peak. He ruled the jazz universe. He was widely loved, but he's facing criticism and he's kind of in trouble now. So they then go into all the criticism and the reasons for the criticism. But of course, the author of the passage recognizes, although Marsalis has been subject to criticism and maybe some of that criticism is warranted, at the same time, Marsalis is good in a lot of ways too. So I see this as like up and down, up and down. Like Marsalis at the beginning, they're saying Marsalis was doing great. Then turns out Marsalis has been doing poorly and jazz as a whole is doing poorly. They talk about why and the criticism we have here, particularly in the third paragraph. They say 25, 26, 27, culpable. That's what I'm taking away. Accused of being culpable. Critics charge that blah, blah, blah. Then the author in lines 37 to 40 is pointing out, indeed, meaning they agree. So that is the evidence where the author of the passage is saying, yeah, Marsalis does deserve some of that criticism. But then they say still, in line 40, they say the word still, he never advocated, meaning that they're qualifying it. They're going in the other direction now. And they're saying, although some criticism is deserved, Marsalis wasn't as bad as people thought. Any caricature of him that was saying he was totally in one camp advocating something extreme is not really true. Marsalis is accused of being a total traditionalist, and that's the reason why jazz has gone down the tubes. But the record executives did not properly understand Marsalis' major point. Marsalis was into what they called earlier neo-traditionalism. Line 9, neo-traditionalism. That word really stuck out to me because it's a summary of what Marsalis was apparently doing. But neo-traditionalism and traditionalism alone or revivalism alone are not necessarily the same thing. If it was all about traditionalism and revivalism, then yeah, go into the back catalog and just keep re-releasing old stuff. You wouldn't need to actually help out new artists. But neo-traditionalism would mean taking some of the concepts of the past work, but doing something new with it, with the active musicians. But they're pointing out that the reason for the collapse of active jazz musicians is because, as we see towards the end of the passage, I'm talking about, let's see, lines 41 to 51 to the end, they're saying how the economics led them to really just use the old stuff. Yeah. So I've given you my thoughts on this. Now I could go through again now and just point out all the things I noticed. The neo-traditionalism stood out to me in line 9. I'm thinking a lot about ups and downs in this passage, especially because that's even some of what they're doing. Like I said, in line 4, at his peak. So peak means the top. That's the up and down. So that orients me throughout this passage. Up and down, positive and negative. Jazz is doing well, Marsalis is doing well. Jazz is doing poorly, Marsalis is doing poorly. Marsalis is like a microcosm of jazz overall for active jazz musicians. So that's my mental framework here. Line 4, at his peak. Line 6, unsurpassed influence. Line 5, virtually unqualified admiration. Then we have the increasing fire in line 8. So first he's up, then he's down. I've talked in the past about viewpoint 1, viewpoint 2. Viewpoint 1 might be up, viewpoint 2 might be down. Again, that's obviously incredible oversimplification, but that is my mental framework here. We need mental frameworks to simplify things and get a hold on them. Yeah. Then paragraph 2. To me, that's largely just details to me about the down. Yeah. The first sentence is about the up, 15 new CDs in 1 year. That's crazy. That's incredible volume. But then they contrast it with the down. Lots of details about the down. So this particular paragraph isn't that important to me because it's just details on the up followed by the down. It's going from Marsalis to jazz musicians in general and the macro level, but still the same general theme. So I wouldn't obsess over like, what exactly did Columbia do? What exactly did Atlantic Records do? I can go back and find that when I need it, but to me, that's not core to the structure. So I'm going now to the third and fourth paragraphs because there were definitely some things there that gave me the framework. Line 37, indeed. The indeed and the still are directional words. And people will put them in lists of keywords and suggest you should highlight, underline, and so on. I'm not going to suggest that you actually make those markings, but they are useful to tell you what the author thinks. The third paragraph is all about the critics of Marsalis, but the fourth paragraph tells you what the author thinks. And the indeed, who's saying indeed? The author. Who's saying, line 40, who's saying still? It's the author. So the author is telling us what they think about this criticism. And as we can expect, they're being fairly reasonable. They're not at one polar extreme or the other. They're simply saying that there's some truth to the criticism. Then once again, line 45, however, so the indicator taking us in the other direction, and they're telling us that the record executives thought a different thing. I'm thinking for paragraph 2 that things are down on both the macro and micro level. So I talk about up and down, peak in line 4, and then criticism, things are bad. So in paragraph 2, to me, that's details about how things are bad, both on the individual level for Marsalis, as well as in general. So that's micro for Marsalis, macro for the jazz genre overall. I won't expect there to be a lot of questions about this paragraph, but if there were, I know where to find that. Paragraph 2 is the paragraph with details about the specific ways in which the jazz genre is doing poorly. So that's like an example paragraph. But the fact that they're mentioning Columbia and Atlantic and Warner, the fact that they're mentioning these specific jazz artists, Ellington, Monk, Davis, I don't really care. Yeah. The number of CDs, I don't really care. To me, it's about the distinction. Things were better before, now they're bad. And people are blaming Marsalis for this. But the blaming really, of course, is coming from paragraph 1 and paragraph 3. I would expect there's going to be a lot focused on paragraph 3 and 4 in particular, because that's where all the nuance is, especially the author's opinion. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them, and feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them, and feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.